Hello, everyone. Welcome to Six Train Therapy. I'm DJ Mayday,
And I'm Professor S.
and today we're gonna look into this holiday, this new holiday that the government's given us, Juneteenth. Super, a little suspicious, but why we got the holiday for me, it's so new. I don't know to be happy about it. I don't know if we celebrate. Do we have a beer? Are we watching the game? Are we jumping in the pool? Or are we going to church? I have no idea what this holiday is about.
Or are we remembering one of the saddest times in our American history that's not shared or taught in school? It's almost like Martin Luther King Day. Martin Luther King and civil rights, and that's it.
Yeah, but Martin Luther King, I feel like he was a person that we
No, but I'm saying is that Martin Luther King is like the good black leader.
right.
Right? We don't say Malcolm X Liberation Day, because he's not the acceptable black man, but he was just as important to the struggle as Martin Luther King. And also, Malcolm X had a very interesting character arc. He went from looking at white people as devils through Islam to realizing that we're all humans, we're all the same, we're all of a particular of his faith, they're all the same, they're all varying complexions, colors from around the world. So that has its own story to it of growth and redemption and then development, evolution. So when we're talking about, I know when we were talking about Juneteenth, we talked about commercialism, is this another holiday, and so on. And I had such a different reaction to Juneteenth. And DJ Mayday will put up an image of a slave with welts on his back from being whipped. And to me, that's what Juneteenth is actually about. Like, it's why was there liberation from slavery? Because of that image is reflected of Africans coming here enslaved, lived under terrorism. So basically, it was the end of a certain level, if I can even use the word level, of terrorism.
I hear that. I hear all that, but like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, President's Day, they're all, you know, uh, historical figure centric holidays, right? So there's context, there's a pattern that we can follow. If we had, let's say, Donald Trump Day or an Obama Day.
No, see,
No, but wait. Let me,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
So
Go
like,
ahead, Bob Brown. But
there's a pathological. All right, this is how Americans celebrate their heroes, and this is what we'll do. Memorial Day is supposed to be a day where we reflect on all the heroes that created and defended and served this great democracy that we live in, and the way we celebrate it is with a moment of silence. All right, everybody, jump in the pool, pass the beer. So. Like, how do Americans celebrate Juneteenth?
before we could talk about celebrating, in my mind, Juneteenth represents the underbelly of American history. When we talk about Memorial Day, we're talking about honoring our heroes. When we talk about Martin Luther King, we're talking about civil rights leader. What Martin Luther King was trying to take the quote unquote liberation to another level. Before him, we still had Jim Crow laws. Like the whole thing about civil rights.
Well, that's the other aspect of it. Is like,
but my point is that is something that's very acceptable and exciting and wonderful for the masses.
Right.
I'm coming from a place of at least people learn about Martin Luther King on some level, or he'll be the part. If we have Black History Month and we talk about Martin Luther King, that could be the extent of what people get, especially kids in school.
right.
My thing with this is that this is a historical underbelly of our American society. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about genitals being removed. We don't talk about men and women being hung from trees. Like this is what Juneteenth. This is where Juneteenth comes from. This is what happened before. For 250 years.
Okay.
That existed.
Now we're talking about. We're literally talking about the absolute tragic aspect of it. Now we're going to go back to our core, like our baselines. Like,
what is that core? What is that?
I'm an optimist.
Yeah,
I'm an
that's
optimist.
Right. That's right.
And you're a realist, right?
I have an opinion that may not sound optimistic.
Right.
Yes, we're like a counterpoint to a certain
right.
degree.
So on some level,
I'll accept that.
On some level, like I have to look at it as maybe it's just my innate American upbringing.
Okay.
Like, all right, we have a holiday. Look, if we have taken Christmas and totally removed Jesus from the holiday and put in like a fat man in a red suit,
which some people feel that way.
Yeah,
Jesus
and
removed, Christmas, Easter.
Yeah, and we turned into a total consumer driven holiday. If we did that to Jesus, like that's
do that to Juneteenth,
right?
Easter.
So it's kind of the American way. So like, I think the holiday is too premature. I think it's a premature holiday a little bit because you're celebrating the end of slavery, and that kind of on some level is maybe a quarter of the way of the process, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have Jim Crow, fighting through that. Then you have the civil rights movement, and you're fighting through that. And now it's the Black Lives Matter.
But at least Juneteenth is a opportunity to discuss all of those things. It's an opening. Maybe it's too. I don't know what that means when you say it's too soon, because it's been around for a long time. And let me just admit to our viewers. I mean, Juneteenth was not a big deal in my life and my understanding.
Yeah,
I knew what it was, but to get into the history, like some of my friends have been celebrating Juneteenth for over 25 years. So, and these are my friends. So, I think what's really great.
Well, what's a celebration? An acknowledgement of, or an actual
it's all of the
tradition?
Above. Like, can I just read a little bit about
Absolutely,
that?
go for it.
All right. So, as part of my research, I just pulled some things together without being too, wordy and long with this segment. So, Juneteenth. Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to play, because we did go on the streets and we did
an interview, right?
We did a quick interview. Mm-hmm. So I wanted you to kind of hear it and see it, and the audience see it as well. And then
jump into this.
Yeah, what you said. So we're gonna play it real quick.
Okay, mayday on the street. I'm asking this fine young gentleman what he thinks of Juneteenth.
Yeah. So honestly, I think it's kind of a fake holiday that the government kind of gave us.
Wow.
Yeah. Honestly, because I think, Juneteenth is it's not even really when the slavery was, emancipation was actually given to us. And I think it's just a fake holiday that the government gave to us, and just wanted to give to us African Americans just because, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, based on that, I don't think you're a big supporter of it, but how should it be celebrated? If it is celebrated? Should it be like a Cinco de Mayo, everybody getting drunk, watching a football game?
I don't think it should be like a celebrated holiday. I think it should just be something that, us African Americans are celebrating, I guess, on ourselves in our own time.
In your own way.
Not to say that the government doesn't support it, but I think it's just something that they just gave it to us just because that's like a pity thing, I guess. Or just we're just gonna give them a holiday, just like a Martin Luther King Day or something like that because he passed away. But I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Cool, man. Thanks a lot. Yep.
Okay.
All right. So that was an interesting interview, right? So that's kind of, in some ways, it dovetails off of what I'm going to say, but I'm just going to put some actual historical context, right? So Juneteenth is a holiday commemorating the end of slavery in the United States. It's also called Emancipation Day or Juneteenth, Independence Day. The name Juneteenth references the date of the holiday, combining the words June and 19th. So Juneteenth is celebrated annually on June 19th. So that's your base of that. But I just want to go a little further, right? So the way it's celebrated, you've said that, right? Asking. So Juneteenth celebrations in the United States typically include prayer, religious services, speeches, educational events, family gatherings, and picnics and festivals with food, music, and dancing. The day is also celebrated outside of the United States and is used to recognize the end of slavery as well as to celebrate African American culture and achievements. And I think that's where I am leaning towards. Is it's an educational teachable moment, and these other aspects are we as human beings, we do celebrate, we do things to honor history, our past, our future, or aspirations. But as someone that comes from a background of mental health, I was a sociology major. The meaning for me goes to another dimension. It's neither more or less. It's just the layer is now what is Juneteenth? What does that mean? Emancipation of slaves. Well, you have to go into, well, what's a slave? How did they live in the United States for over 250 years and then go into another 100 years of Jim Crow? You have to understand the history so that it's not that Lincoln freed the slaves. Because when I was in high school, that's basically all I got was Lincoln freed the slaves and Martin Luther King.
I get it. I get it. So, like the person that we interviewed, the guy on the skreet.
Mm-hmm. Did you say the skreet?
I did say the skreet. That's the segment. I'm going to call it
Skreet.
that. Guy or girl on a skreet.
Skreet. Yes.
But when I spoke to him, he's a millennial. Obviously, he's a 20-something-year-old guy, and just how he just was right away not having it. Mm-hmm. This is just they're just throwing us a bone.
Right.
This is not.
He was very lackluster about it.
Right.
It really didn't have any meat and potatoes to it from his perspective.
Right. So that you could even hear it in the interview. I was like, whoa! Like I didn't expect that. I assumed there would be some level of happiness. Like I was happy that there was acknowledgement, but he was just like, "Man, that's just throwing us a bone."
Well, there's also, also of that generation, it's not as an established thing like this thing happened. Millennials don't really carry that. I hope I'm not being too stereotypical or general.
I think you're about to be an old man, but go ahead.
I am an old man. I'm actually
no, but you're about to act like an old man. Go ahead.
No, I think the term is old fart. I'm an old fart, so I accept that. But my son is a millennial too, so it's not like he doesn't have any knowledge of slavery. It's just that it's not part of his day-to-day consciousness. There's not.
But was it
there's
ever
not a link to it?
Obviously, other than slavery,
from a certain age.
I feel like America's been covering it up since the end of it. You know what I mean? It's all a cover-up. Right, that's what I'm saying.
It's all a cover-up. So anyway, I'm just relating to this particular gentleman. I don't know his story and so on, but as a millennial, this is really not, quote unquote, a big deal, I don't think. Maybe for some it is, very much so. But I think for a certain generation, maybe my generation and older, maybe generation earlier, I can't really say, but I think for my generation, someone that was born in the late 50s, the baby boomers, would have probably a different relationship to an event like this.
I don't think that millennials are less knowledgeable about slavery than, let's say,
the average person.
No, just let's say a person of the same age during the civil rights movement. Like I think they have their knowledge and more knowledge.
I so disagree with you.
Wow.
I so disagree with you because there's a difference growing up in the 60s where you watch the news of...
I'm not talking about the civil rights movement and oppression and Jim Crow. I'm not talking specifically about that. But slavery ended 150 years ago. The civil rights movement was in its 60s, so we're talking 50, 55 years ago. So I think they have more understanding of what slavery was like than, let's say, let's say, the civil rights movement, there were no movies. There was no roots. There was no.
So wait, so what are you saying when you say
What
they
I'm saying,
know more? If there was no roots,
they have
no...
more reference points. Like even Django.
What about it?
The cruelty that was shown to slaves
Right.
was probably the closest depiction ever put on TV or on the movie screens to what it was like to be a slave.
Okay, but how many? You can't really say how many millennials saw that. You
No,
can't
but-
really you can't quantify. Okay, because 12 Years a Slave and Django came out, which were very, very kind of powerful stories.
And there are a
around
lot
slavery.
more, too.
Of course, but what I'm saying is that
They
doesn't
have more of a
necessarily
subconscious
mean-
understany
What?
and
What are you talking
and
about?
imagery.
Subconscious?
And
You know,
imagery.
wait a minute now. Don't
Okay,
go to
all
that
right,
word,
all right.
subconscious. Because subconscious means you don't know what it is. You just know, you just have this experience, but you don't. Consciousness is when you know what it is. Subconscious, you don't know what's happening in your subconscious.
Right, but
what I'm saying is,
but
that-
imagery sometimes can affect people, even if you don't fully understand what's
Absolutely,
happening. It's being impressed
You know what
upon
I
you.
do feel? I tell you what I do feel, which might be odd for me to say this to you, is I think that millennials are much less prejudiced. I think they're lot less. They're more accepting of a gay identity. Of you're human. They're coming more from a human being perspective. They didn't experience civil rights. They didn't experience laws against being, if you're gay, if you're from another country. They're much less racially if I can, I don't even know if this is the right word, but they're far less racially segregationist. There's more a sense of being, we're just being, depending on, of course, the families that you're coming from, but they're growing up in a world of technology. They can just click on something and find out all about slavery if
Right.
that's what they want to do.
Right, but that's
That from
but that's
that
my
point
point.
of view, but it's not necessarily like a cultural movement for the young people that have done that search.
I
to-
don't know because
what about your
my Generation X was
no
did nothing.
your children
Right. I think
so
millennials
do you feel they have a strong understanding
Yes.
of slavery?
more so than I did when I was their age.
Well, they're
And-
probably smarter than you. That's probably what that is.
Definitely smarter.
I mean, come on now.
Absolutely smarter. But what I will say is that millennials are the tip of the sword right now when it comes to transgender, gay, sexual experience, and Black Lives Matter. They have their movement. We're not going to be out here and like say that they don't. I'm a Generation X. I am not a millennial, but I can see it for what it is. And growing up as a kid, in the 80s and 90s, I know the civil rights people. They're either my parents or my teachers or my friends and family. Like so,
But I think that your generation, which is not far from mine, but it is a different generation.
Yes.
I think your guys were more on the cusp of that. I think there's more folks of your age that has an understanding of
Both.
that arc.
Right.
That arc.
Not being an
I
either
don't
or.
think- I don't think that the generation after is as knowledgeable as those in your generation, because you're speaking about yourself and your children who are actually in a multicultural family. So that's also another part that's part of their understanding. I think coming from a baby boomer, remember baby boomers were kids born after World War II. We're the product of a major world
Changing
conflict
event, yeah.
that changed basically the world. But you also have to know that when World War II ended, 1945, Black people were in Jim Crow.
Right.
A lot of people in 1945 coming back, they had, what's that called? The New Deal.
They didn't get no
where
deal.
You had, where you could go to school for free, you can get
Housing,
housing and all
yeah.
those things. That was still Jim Crow. Those were not permitted to Black people. In fact, if I can just read this part. So what came after the emancipation, right? So you had about 250, 300 years of slavery. Once slaves were quote unquote freed, emancipated.
See, that's what I don't understand. We're
you
celebrating quote unquote
you
free.
have now 100 years of Jim Crow. So Jim Crow laws were a collection of state and local statutes that legalized racial segregation, right? Named after a black minstrel show character, the laws, which existed for about 100 years from the post-Civil War era until 1968, that's when people go, oh, Martin Luther King. But it was Jim Crow for 100 years. And you have people who were born, they're alive right now, that lived through Jim Crow. It's not that long ago. So it exists for 100 years from the post-Civil War era until 1968. The black folks were met with marginalized African Americans by denying them rights to vote, hold jobs, get an education, or other opportunities. Those who attempted to defy Jim Crow laws often faced arrest, fines, jail sentences, violence, and death. So when we're talking about Juneteenth, all this is part of Juneteenth. So you have this quote unquote emancipation, but then you also had this other ripple effect that was born out of that. And there's also the roots of what's called of Jim Crow laws began as early as 1865, immediately following the ratification of the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery in the United States, and these were called Black Codes. Black Codes were strict local and state laws, not your neighborhood, the state laws that detailed when, where, and how formerly enslaved people could work and for how much compensation. So not only could you determine from state to state if you could work, but also, are you going to get paid or not? Right? The codes appeared throughout the South as a legal way to put black citizens into indentured servitude, to take voting rights away, to control where they lived and how they traveled, and to seize children for labor purposes. So when I think of Juneteenth, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what comes out for me, because it's an opportunity to learn about this. Your younger people, your folks in high school, college, because all this has been erased, it's been put under the table. Because guess what? I remember when I was an undergrad and I was learning about these things, I said to myself, if I learned this in high school,
you've been pissed.
I would have been pissed as a motherfucker. And that is what I feel.
Well, is this
part of the people control that our society has kind of laid over. And racism doesn't just affect black and brown people, it affects everyone, because if you as a white person doesn't know this, then you're moving now into your white privilege. You don't have to know this information.
All right, now I have to jump in here because you could do this
all day.
Yeah, you could do this all day.
You know, like Captain America, didn't he say, I could do this all day? Remember that? Anyway, go right ahead. I love Marvel Comics.
So
from Juneteenth to Marvel Comics, Captain America. Go ahead.
I like it. It's all American anyway.
It is.
So based on what you're saying,
yes,
and we don't have a lot more time, but I want to know what you think non-descendants of slaves, how Latin, white, whatever, Asian, Americans,
yes,
how should they approach Juneteenth?
Learn, read about it.
But
read about it. If you want to go to your friend's picnic because they're celebrating Juneteenth, go to it. Now, if you want to watch some movies about or go to plays about, you know, the African American black experience in America, then do that. Educate yourself. Because you don't have to go anywhere. You can just get a book on anything, on the emancipation. Read it.
Okay.
Sit down with your kids.
So holidays,
and talk about it.
Holidays have social cues.
Okay.
All right.
But
Now,
you're asking me my opinion.
yes, I'm asking your opinion.
Yeah, but
but
there's so
we're going
many
to
others.
further along the conversation.
Yes.
So last year, the first Juneteenth,
Mm-hmm.
right? I believe it was IKEA put on their menu as part of a celebration. Now, you're laughing,
go ahead.
But I just want to. They put on
I
their
don't know
menu.
what he's about to say. Go ahead.
On their menu, they put fried chicken and watermelon. Now,
Yes.
I could see how
That could be
a
a
white
celebration.
person could get that fucked up. So,
What do you mean get that fucked up? What does that
like,
mean?
they're like, Cinco de Mayo, we're having Coronas, tacos, and we're wearing sombreros.
Okay.
What are the cues, the social cues? Should there be social cues for Juneteenth? Should there be traditions that non-descendants of American slaves can call on? Because they don't have the same.
I don't. My answer is I don't know the answer to that question.
Is that a natural evolution of the holiday?
I think the holiday is now coming into folks' consciousness now. So when you mentioned something about being premature, I think that is early. I think that's a part of it. I think there's many people that have celebrated Juneteenth, like my friend, for over 25 years. That's not. There's a dancing, there's food. That's how she celebrates it with a whole bunch of other people. And so I think the fear that I have is the commercialization of it that's going to begin to happen. The same thing happened with the gay rights. Before it was a huge liberation thing, there were marches, and now there's gay pride. You've got all these corporate sponsors. We like gay people.
I got to jump in right here.
Yeah, please do.
This is America, bro.
Yeah, I know.
If they can
No,
make
but
money
I mean-
off of it,
No,
they're
honestly.
going to try to make money off
No,
of
I
it.
mean, that's a given, but I'm just saying
I
that...
mean, not even Jesus is safe from that.
I mean, and I understand that, but to answer your question, how you can celebrate it is however it's celebrated. Like, watermelon French fried chicken. So for some people, it may be fantastic if they're black or brown, whatever. I'm not questioning that. What I am saying is that
It's
like you said, America is a capitalist society. This would be an opportunity to make it a political thing as well as an economic opportunity. So I hear that. But my main point is this is a learning opportunity. It's a teachable moment, as they say. That's what Juneteenth is to me, a teachable moment.
That's awesome. I just want to give a quick shout out to Shay Moss. She was one of the election officials in Georgia she's a real black ass, like, American hero, a real patriot. And I just wanted to get that kind of off my chest because I've been watching the January 6th things and I was floored. How our president, his allies were basically teaming up on a black woman, and she stood her ground. What? I just wanted to say that. Just had to get that off my chest.
That's cool.
So,
and that she's probably a great representation of Juneteenth, because without Juneteenth, you probably wouldn't have a person like that. See what I'm saying?
but is it the kind of thing where
Are we out of time?
we're almost out of time? But I just want to. Are we at a place where we're carrying the ball and pushing it forward?
What does that mean?
Meaning in the sense of black people passing on the baton, let's say, to
What does that mean?
meaning slaves to abolitionists to civil rights leaders to Black Lives Matter and so on. Is that, and is Juneteenth kind of symbol?
I don't see it as an evolution. No, I don't. I think like the young man that spoke about his feelings about it, he saw it as the government is giving us something, like throwing a bone. I don't think necessarily like that is throwing a bone, but it has its own experience. I think Juneteenth has its own life to it. I don't see, because it's like saying, look, when they emancipated the slaves, you went into another 100 years of Jim Crow. Is Jim Crow better than slavery? In many ways, it's not. But if you look at it from your point of view, then it's like, okay, there's emancipation, there's now Jim Crow, then there's the civil rights. But all those original limiting of where you work, how much you can make, your celebrities, all that still exists.
Yeah, it still
Very much
exists,
so.
but the way from what you say and how you interpret it, and I'm gonna go by what you say is that Jim Crow, slavery, civil rights, you're encompassing it all into Juneteenth
What I'm saying is that
and how it's celebrated. That's what you see when you hear Juneteenth.
repeat that.
Like when you hear the Juneteenth celebration, from what you were saying, is that all these things are encompassed in that holiday.
No. What I was saying is that I thought you were saying when you talked about the baton and moving it forward, evolving, that's how I was envisioning. Like there was this period in time, each time was quote unquote more liberated. Is that what
right?
you're saying?
And
Maybe I'm not.
this is a symbol. Like when you can begin to celebrate a victory, and I'm not saying it's over. I'm not trying to indicate any kind of thing, but I feel like where there's not a sigh of relief, but at least an acknowledgement. I think we've hit a kind of a bit of a crossroads.
Yeah, I have a totally
where a holiday can be declared in America. I mean,
I think this was a significant trauma in American history.
what, Juneteenth?
No, slavery.
Oh, absolutely. No one's
But
done
what
this.
I'm saying is that Juneteenth is for me a teachable moment that says that there was a horrific trauma that occurred. We can celebrate all we want, and I think there's a what do you call that? A continuum. There's a continuum, a range of how you can identify. I'm saying that this is a teachable moment. Like I wouldn't mind going to a lecture about how people lived in slavery, what kind of living conditions.
But not everyone's
were they
built
in.
that way.
No,
not everyone's built that way.
But I'm just saying, like, think of this as a pie. What we're talking about,
Right?
I'm talking about a slice of that pie. Other slices could be about celebration, dance. It could be about how African music and food was in different, in Puerto Rico and Cuba and all these things. All that could be celebrated. The people who invented stuff that were of African descent, all that can be celebrated. I'm talking about a slice of that pie. That piece is the foundation of what has gone, what is now gone. You have to understand the past to understand the present.
Right. I get that.
That's really all I'm saying.
Absolutely get that. But I feel like I touch a nerve whenever I declare
my nerve.
A little bit.
Because I'm human, I have nerves. You have nerves too.
I have nerves, but some of my nerves are sensitive. Some of your nerves are sensitive. I feel like I would get a little sensitive nerve.
So what did you feel like I sensitive?
Well,
are we out of time?
We almost there.
Okay. I'm not trying to end the show. I'm just saying.
No, he's just trying to cut me off. No.
You can't cut this brother off.
No, you definitely can't.
Go ahead.
But Juneteenth, I'm trying to still figure out how we can merge an American holiday with all of us celebrating the end of slavery. I don't know if it's possible, but my optimistic side wants to celebrate that.
Okay.
Together.
Yeah, and that can be done.
That's what I want.
But that can be done. Like I said, I'm just talking to you about a slice of this pie. That doesn't eliminate.
I want the whole pie.
That does not permit for individual thought.
Well, I mean, if we have to celebrate as a group,
you can celebrate.
We have to group think this.
I'm not. No, because that's not. No. It's not about a group think.
Well, then you're gonna have people stepping out of line. You're gonna have people doing wild stuff and like not really like doing what they're supposed to be doing.
What do you mean what they're supposed to be doing? Who are you?
I'm trying to commemorate.
What do you mean what they're supposed to be doing?
I didn't mean it like that. Don't take it like that.
But, I mean, Washington.
Well, do you want some people to be disrespectful about the holiday?
12 of our presidents were slave owners. So if you want to celebrate people's holiday, I mean, what we're supposed to do with
what I'm saying is without
President's Day is something to celebrate.
If we don't have
now you're hitting the nerve.
I know that's what I'm saying. I keep hitting that damn nerve. Like all I'm saying is that a criteria for people who don't know is kind of healthy. If we're a country of 350 million people, I think a little bit of cues, social cues,
Okay.
are in order.
And you know what?
So you don't have watermelon at the motherfucking Kia.
Or you can have watermelon and fried chicken at your gathering. Or you can have watermelon and fried chicken and rice and okra
And tostones.
and tostones. You can make it a part of all people bringing in their foods, especially if it's connected to the African diaspora, because the foods from Africa are in so many different cultures. So that's even taking it to another place. It depends how you want to celebrate it. Again, I come from a place, I'm a mental health person, I'm a psychotherapist. I also studied sociology as a major, counseling as a minor. So my head goes into places like trauma, things like generational trauma, things like economic control, things of that nature. So we're out of time. So thank
Happy
you.
Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth, guys. And guess what? All right, my brother from another mother. I'm Professor S.
And I'm DJ Mayday. Thank you for listening to the 6 Train Therapy Podcast. Peace.
Peace out.